Welcome to Karma Chronicles. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin. I knew I'd regret coming the second I saw what Elaine was wearing. Tight white jeans, designer belt, heels, to a car expo. Like she was walking a runway, not a parking lot. My name's Jenna. I'm 29. I live in Richmond, Virginia. This grand auto revival show. Supposed to be a girls' bonding day with my stepmother and two half-sisters, Kylie and Brooke. We'd been planning it for weeks. Or I should say they had. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. The second I shut my car door, Kylie rolled her eyes at me like I'd showed up in pajamas. I was wearing jeans and a black hoodie. Comfortable, but not acceptable, apparently. Elaine glanced at me once, then turned to Kylie and Brooke. "Let's grab our VIP passes before the line gets long," she said. "And let's keep the energy up. This is a luxury expo, not some IT convention." I bit the inside of my cheek. IT, always the dig. Kylie, 23, works for some big deal event planning firm in DC. She talks in hashtags now. Brooke's 21 and interning at a marketing agency tied to race sponsorships. Every sentence out of her mouth ends with, "It's all about image, honestly." Me, I work in technical systems analysis, but to them, I do something with computers. "So, Jenna," Brooke said while we waited at the ticket booth, "how's that desk job? You still doing, spreadsheets all day?" "I work in tech systems analysis," I said. "Not spreadsheets." Elaine waved her hand like I was interrupting. What she means is Jenna works in a cubicle, which is fine, but here. She gestured at the crowd of photographers and modified Mustangs. "You need presence. You can't hide in a hoodie and hope people respect you." I wasn't hiding. I was trying to stay warm. Once inside, Kylie passed me a swag bag and said, "Can you hold these for us?" Just like that, I was their pack mule. They strutted off ahead of me, snapping selfies and chatting about engines like they suddenly knew what a camshaft was. I followed behind with all three bags slung over my shoulder. No one even looked back to check if I was keeping up. We stopped by an old-school Mustang GT, and Brooke turned to Elaine. "This car's like a statement, you know? It says you made it." Elaine smiled at her, then looked at me. Some people never even start. I clenched my jaw and kept walking. We were halfway through the vendor row when they dragged me into another one of their influencer moments. Bright lights, glass displays, overpriced branded jackets. One booth had a full lineup of car wrap designs lit up behind a velvet rope. Kylie stopped, flipped her hair over one shoulder, and turned to Brooke. "Tell me this wouldn't look insane on a G-Wagon." She pointed to some iridescent purple wrap with fake diamond dust or whatever. Brooke nodded like she'd just solved world hunger. "Oh, for sure. You'd get a brand deal before you even parked." Then Kylie looked at me, head to toe, and smirked. "Well, not that Jenna would ever need a wrap." "You still driving that?" "What is it?" "A Corolla." Brooke laughed. "No, it's a Civic. Or a minivan. Something beige. Something tragic." My hands tightened around the straps of their bags. I didn't say a word. Kylie walked a circle around me like I was on display. "And those jeans? Are those boot cut?" She sounded horrified. Elaine chimed in, loud enough for the two booth workers to hear. "We've tried. She just hasn't grown into her potential. At some point, it's not about money, it's about presentation." The guy behind the counter coughed and looked away. His coworker kept her eyes down, pretending not to hear. Brooke leaned closer to Kylie. "You think she knows what ceramic coating is?" Kylie fake whispered. "She probably thinks wrap is like sandwich wrap." Elaine laughed. A cold, polished laugh like she was on stage. "Sweetheart, it's not her fault. Jenna's always been. How do I say this nicely?" She turned to me. "Private, quiet, but that doesn't really work in our world, does it?" I didn't answer, just stared at a display of matte gray hoodies with racing logos stitched on the sleeves. Elaine kept going. "It's all about visibility now. Style, image. You want to succeed in this space, you need to stand out. Not disappear into the background in off-brand sneakers and clearance rack denim." Kylie pulled out her phone. "Should we get a picture here?" Elaine turned, posed between the girls, and Brooke snapped a dozen shots. I stood off to the side, holding their bags like some unpaid assistant. One of the booth workers finally looked at me with this awkward half-smile, like he wanted to say something but didn't want to get involved. Elaine turned back to me and dropped the final punch. "You know, Jenna, it's not that you're not smart. It's just, success is about more than logic and numbers. You need charisma, presence. Both your sisters have it. They walk into a room and people notice. You, she waved a hand in the air like she was swatting a fly. I nodded once, tight. My stomach was clenched so hard I felt like I might throw up. Kylie adjusted her sunglasses, inside, by the way, and said, "Honestly, Jenna, you'd do great in back-end support roles, where no one sees you." Elaine clapped once. Exactly. There's nothing wrong with being background talent. Every star needs a crew. I glanced at the booth's neon sign, Modrap Customs. Brand yourself bold. Funny, they had no idea who they were talking to. I took a step back, adjusted the weight of the bags on my shoulder, and walked toward the next row without waiting for them. We found a table near the taco truck at the center of the expo. Loud music was thumping from the stage area, and the smell of grilled meat and grease hung in the air. I sat at the edge, still holding their swag bags, while they all picked at grain bowls and sipped overpriced lemonade. Brooke was halfway through some avocado thing when she leaned over her tray. "Jenna, what's that apartment complex you live in again? The one with the, what was it? Matching beige units and sad parking lot trees?" Kylie snorted. "You mean the place that looks like an old DMV office? Yeah, I drove past it once. Thought it was condemned." I didn't look up, just kept chewing my chicken taco and focused on the cement under my feet. Elaine leaned forward. Your father and I always hoped you'd eventually upgrade. Socially, professionally, lifestyle-wise. But here we are." Brooke popped a bite into her mouth. I mean, no offense, but she still drives the same car she had in college. And no offense, Jenna, but that Civic gives me flashbacks to my high school babysitter. Kylie grinned. "Let's not even get into the dating life." "Wait, is there one?" "None that she's ever shared," Elaine said sharply. "Then again, her generation prefers solitude over connection, I suppose." I blinked at my tray, jaw tight. The food tasted like cardboard now. Elaine straightened her sunglasses on her head. "Jenna, we don't say this to be cruel, but it's concerning. You're almost 30. No real assets, no long-term partner, no public presence. There's a lack of progress." I set my taco down and wiped my hands on a napkin. "I have a job. I pay my bills. That's progress." Elaine sighed like I'd missed the point. "We're talking about trajectory, influence, direction." Brooke jumped in. "If the trust fund was designed to reward the most promising branch of the family tree." Kylie raised an eyebrow. "Then maybe it's worth re-evaluating how it's distributed." I blinked. "Wait, what?" Elaine nodded slowly. "Absolutely. It was built on accountability and long-term vision, not just basic survival. If 2 out of 3 beneficiaries are thriving while 1 stagnates," Kylie cut in, "then maybe we redistribute based on outcomes. Reward effort, results." I stared at them. "Are you serious right now?" Elaine reached across the table, voice soft but firm. "Jenna, sweetheart, you're not failing. But you're not excelling. And that's a problem when resources are limited and legacy matters." Kylie leaned back in her chair. "We're just talking. Hypotheticals." Brooke tossed her napkin onto her tray. "I mean, I'd be happy to take on more responsibility with the fund. Invest it. Grow it. Actually do something with it." Elaine smiled at her. "Exactly. The fund was never about equal handouts. It's about stewarding the family name." I stared at all 3 of them. Right there, in broad daylight, with people walking past and music still thumping in the background, they were plotting to take what wasn't theirs, what my father left for all of us, and they weren't even hiding it. Elaine took a sip of her drink. "It's not personal, Jenna. It's structural. You chose a safe, quiet life. Nothing wrong with that. But this family needs leaders, presence, impact." Kylie folded her arms. "We're just being honest. Isn't that what this lunch was for?" I didn't answer. I stood up, threw away my trash, and walked toward the nearest exit from the food court. I didn't trust my voice enough to speak. I didn't make it far before Elaine called after me. "Jenna, don't storm off. We're just trying to help you grow." I didn't look back, but I didn't leave either. I ended up rejoining them by the row of restored Chevelles and Challengers, still clutching their stupid swag bags like some personal mule. Brooke was squatting down beside a red 71 Charger, pointing at the custom rims. "Now this is something with muscle. Not like those little sedans you see parked in front of low-income housing." She didn't say my name, but she didn't have to. Kylie laughed and elbowed her. Maybe Jenna should sell her Civic and get something more appropriate, like a used Ford Focus, or even a scooter. Honestly, a scooter might match the vibe better. Elaine didn't even try to hide her smirk. It's just good advice, Jenna. You should really consider scaling back. Your current car is too much for someone at your level. My level. Brooke stood up and brushed off her knees. I follow this financial advice podcast, and they always say to live within your means, especially when your future money might not be so guaranteed. Elaine nodded slowly. It's just smart planning. You don't want to depend on the trust, not when there's uncertainty. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. Not worth it. Across the walkway, they spotted a booth with a roped-off VIP section. Some rep was talking to a group of influencers and giving out media wristbands. "Watch this," Kylie said, flipping her hair and walking straight up to the guy. Brooke and Elaine followed like they owned the place. I stood back and watched them drop my dad's name like a master key. "Oh, we're part of the Vaughn family," Kylie said, loud enough for people to turn. "We've been involved in racing circuits for years. My father helped fund events like this one." Elaine added, "We're longtime supporters. I'm sure you've seen our name on the early donors wall." The guy gave them each a temporary badge and pointed them toward a velvet rope tent with free champagne and photo ops. Not once did they check to see if I was behind them. I stayed right where I was, by the charger, watching. Then Brooke spotted someone across the lot, a woman probably in her 40s, wearing faded jeans and a sun-bleached t-shirt. She had a backpack and a worn-out phone case, probably here just to take pictures like a regular fan. Brooke laughed under her breath and leaned toward Elaine. "Oh God, is she lost? Someone tell her the thrift store's 2 blocks down." Kylie added, "Maybe she thought this was a flea market." Tragic. Elaine didn't say anything at first, just narrowed her eyes, then whispered something that made all 3 of them laugh. That was it. It wasn't the jabs about my job or the trust fund. It was this. Watching them tear down a stranger just for not dressing like a TikTok ad. That's when it hit me. They weren't just cruel to me, they were cruel in general. Shallow, mean, plastic. And I wasn't like them. Not even close. I dropped the swag bags on a nearby bench and started walking toward the North Pavilion without saying a word. I was halfway across the North Pavilion when my phone buzzed. Daryl, OPSTEAMI answered, voice low. "This is Jenna." "Hey, we've got a situation with the exhibition stage. Lighting rig's underspec'd, and the audio delay's off for the evening demo. Vendor wants to do a full upgrade, but they're quoting around $60,000. Needs your approval to release the funds." I didn't flinch. "What's the ETA if we greenlight it now?" "They'll have it done by 4:30, but we need confirmation ASAP to rework the power draw and reallocate staff." "Fine, approved. Put it under the contingency account. I'll swing by and tend to initial it." "You got it. Appreciate you, Jenna." I hung up and kept walking. Behind me, I heard heels clacking against the pavement. "Wait," Kylie said. "What was that?" I turned and saw all 3 of them trailing me. Elaine looked confused. Brooke tilted her head. "You're approving $60,000? Brooke asked, blinking fast. "Like, you are." Elaine stepped forward, brow furrowed. "Since when are you involved in Expo finances?" Before I could respond, 2 Expo staffers in navy polos came jogging over. One of them held a clipboard. The other carried a radio. "Miss Vaughn," the one in front said. "The director asked us to find you. He needs you to review the updated layouts for the South Wing. And there's a question about one of the late vendor registrations under your firm's packet." I nodded. "Tell him I'll stop by the trailer after I check on the main stage." The staffer handed me a printout and took off. Brooke looked like she'd just been slapped. "Wait, what do you mean your firm's packet?" Kylie squinted at me like I was suddenly in another language. "You're on the staff here." Elaine grabbed my wrist. "What's going on, Jenna?" Her voice was tight now, less polished, more real. "You need to explain yourself. Now." I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "I have to handle something for the event." I pulled my arm free and turned away without another word. I barely made it 10 steps before Elaine's voice cracked across the pavilion. "Jenna Elise Vaughn." Everything around me froze. Conversations, music, even the 2 food truck guys mid-joke. Half the pavilion turned to look. I turned slowly. She was standing there with one hand on her hip, the other clenched tight around her designer tote. Kylie and Brooke flanked her, both stiff and silent. "Would you please explain what exactly is going on?" she snapped. "In front of all these people, since apparently you've got something to prove." My voice was steady. You want an explanation? I stepped forward, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, and they were listening now. A small circle had already started forming. I own Ignite Automotive Ventures. Elaine blinked. What? Ignite sponsors expos like this. We manage vendor logistics, facilities, and sponsor stage operations across 7 states. This year's revival show. I motioned to the banners above the pavilion. I'm the primary sponsor. Someone gasped. A couple by the lighting booth pulled out their phones. Kylie's mouth dropped open. You're what? I'm the reason this expo is even happening on this scale, I said calmly. You see all this? I pointed toward the south wing. My team helped design the infrastructure, audio systems, power routing, vendor placement, all of it. Brooke blinked fast, color draining from her face. I started Ignite using part of my trust fund, I said. The same one you all thought I was wasting. Elaine stood frozen, her lips slightly parted like she couldn't figure out if she was more shocked or pissed. I turned to Brooke. That marketing agency you intern at. They lease office space in one of my buildings. I saw the tenant agreement last month. She went sheet white, then to Kylie. And your firm's big luxury launch last spring in DC, my company helped fund that venue. I reviewed the invoice myself. Kylie's eyes locked on mine. No, that's... Check the sponsor list. Ignite Automotive Ventures. We covered 40% of the lighting and staging. You're welcome. People had their phones up now, recording, whispering. I saw a woman in a vendor polo nudge her coworker, nodding toward us. Elaine finally found her voice. You never said anything. You let us believe. You assumed, I cut in. You looked at my hoodie, my car, my silence, and decided I was small. Unimportant. But while you were out here chasing likes and status, I was building a company. Kylie shook her head. This is unreal. I nodded once. Yeah, it is. Elaine stepped toward me, lowering her voice like that would undo the damage. This doesn't change. It changes everything, I said, loud enough to cut her off. You belittled me. You mocked me. You tried to cut me out of my own family's legacy while standing inside the world I built. Someone clapped, just one guy at first, near the edge, then another. A few others chuckled awkwardly, unsure if they were witnessing a family feud or a corporate takedown. I didn't care. I looked at Elaine dead in the eyes. You wanted me to explain myself? There you go. That's who I am. I turned toward the operations tent as the whispers swelled behind me. I hadn't made it 10 feet before Elaine called out again, not yelling this time, but sharp enough to stop me. Jenna, don't walk away like this. We're still family. I turned back. I'd had enough of pretending. You want to talk family? I said, stepping forward again. Fine, let's talk numbers. They froze. The small crowd around us hadn't moved either. I didn't blow the trust fund. I used it as collateral for my first commercial property. That property turned into 5. Those 5 started generating monthly cash flow. I reinvested, diversified, real estate, branding, vendor tech, sponsor partnerships, and now, I nodded toward the expo. Now I own pieces of everything around you. Elaine's arms were crossed, but her grip was tightening. Brooke, I said, turning to her, your agency signed a 3-year lease in one of my buildings. The corporate HQ sits on land my company bought in 2020. I approve any capital improvements and negotiate renewal terms. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Kylie, I went on, you know that luxury venue your firm used in DC? I didn't just sponsor it. I own the holding company that manages the property. Your entire portfolio for that quarter tied back to one of my investments. Kylie blinked, like she was still trying to make sense of the math. I looked at Elaine. You wanted influence. I've got financial control over half the companies you name-dropped on your way through this expo. She cleared her throat, trying to shift gears. This really isn't the time for... No, I said, cutting her off. You don't get to pivot. Not after years of calling me plain, quiet, average. You pushed this narrative because I didn't chase cameras or brag about my salary. But guess what? I didn't need to. I had results. Elaine started to speak again, but I kept going. You said I lacked presence, that I coasted. But the truth is, I didn't need your approval. I built my own network. I built infrastructure that props up your internships, your careers, your housing. Brooke's voice finally cracked out. My housing. I nodded. That complex you moved into downtown last summer? I bought that building 6 months before you signed your lease. I approved your rental application myself. Your resume didn't even pass the first check. Kylie's face turned red. Why wouldn't you say anything? Because I didn't need you to know, I said. I don't operate off validation. I operate off outcome. You chase attention. I build value. Elaine looked like she'd swallowed glass. This entire time, I added, you thought I was just tagging along. Meanwhile, you were standing inside a world I've been designing for years. No one said a word. Brooke looked down at the ground. Kylie stared at me like I'd shapeshifted. Elaine's hands were shaking. I turned and walked toward the director's trailer, done waiting for them to catch up. I hadn't even reached the trailer steps when I heard Elaine behind me again, her voice cracking for the first time all day. Jenna, your father never would have allowed this. He believed in balance. I turned back, calm. He knew everything. He was the one who encouraged me to structure the trust my way. You think I moved in silence because I was scared? No, I did it because he trusted me to handle the future. Elaine's mouth opened and closed, like the air had been knocked out of her. I'm one of the trustees now, I said, and for the past 3 years, I've been funding the trust with my own earnings. Not just managing it, growing it. The money you've all been so eager to split. That's my profit padding the balance. Brooke's face went white. Kylie looked like she'd been punched. Elaine stepped forward. That doesn't change anything. I smiled. No, Elaine, it changes everything. The crowd had thinned, but a handful of people were still hanging nearby, pretending not to watch. A camera flash went off behind me. I'm not going to retaliate, I said, my voice steady. This isn't about revenge. I'm not wired like that, but I'm done covering for you. I won't protect you anymore. Not from your own shallow decisions or the image you've created. Kylie took a shaky step forward. Wait, what does that mean? It means, I said, you'll keep your leases, for now. But when those renewals come up, I won't rubber stamp them just because we share blood. You'll be treated like every other tenant. Same process, same standards. Brooke's voice came out small. You wouldn't. I already have, I said. I've turned down family friends for weaker applications. This isn't personal, it's business. You made it personal when you tried to cut me out of something I built. Elaine looked like she might actually be sick. Her skin had gone pale gray, like her foundation couldn't keep up. And the next time you drop Dad's name for a free badge or a photo op, I added, remember that the man you're clinging to chose me to run the future, not you. Not because he loved me more, but because he saw what I was doing while you were busy chasing clout. Kylie's mascara had started to run. I didn't know, she whispered. I thought, exactly, I cut her off. You thought. You assumed. You didn't ask. You laughed. You all sat at that table today plotting to take what wasn't yours, like I was some obstacle instead of the reason you even have those seats. Brooke turned away, one hand over her mouth. Elaine tried one last time, voice shaky. You're making a scene. This doesn't reflect well on any of us. I looked her dead in the eye. Neither did the last 29 years. But I stayed quiet out of respect. That's over. I didn't yell. I didn't flinch. I just turned around as the whispers rippled out across the lot and more phones came up to catch the tail end of it. Let them film. Let them hear it straight. Kylie wiped her eyes. Brooke looked like she might throw up. Elaine stood frozen, clutching her purse strap like it was the only thing keeping her upright. I climbed the steps to the trailer, opened the door, and didn't look back. Daryl was waiting at the top of the ramp when I stepped into the operations tent. Lighting crews standing by, he said, handing me a clipboard. Vendor approved the updated specs. Just need your signature to release the draw. I signed without blinking. Tell them to pull from contingency and log the overage under sponsor allocations. He gave a short nod. Already did. Also, vendor at booth 42 needs authorization for an extra canopy. One of the influencers is doing a live stream there now. It's pulling more traffic than expected. Send it through. Keep the fire marshal happy. Daryl smiled. You got it. I moved to the back counter, skimming through the rest of the paperwork. My phone buzzed. Elaine, we need to talk. This doesn't change anything. I stared at the screen for a second, then hit delete. Daryl raised an eyebrow. Everything good? Yeah, I said, just wrapping up some family business. The elevated tent gave me a full view of the expo grounds. From up here, I could see Kylie and Brooke down near the classic car row, sitting stiff on a bench like two mannequins with nowhere left to pose. Elaine stood behind them, one hand on her hip, sunglasses on, lips pressed tight. I didn't feel angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I was just done pretending they had the right to define who I was. Excuse me? I turned. A woman, maybe 25, stood at the tent entrance, nervous but smiling. She wore a vendor lanyard from one of the smaller booths near the back lot. I just wanted to say thank you, she said. My team's new. We never thought we'd land a spot at an event like this, but whoever made the call to give us a chance, it changed everything. I smiled and stepped forward. Glad you're here. Hope you guys crush it today. She lit up, shook my hand, then hurried back down the ramp. I checked the clock, picked up the next vendor packet, and kept moving. Just another day in the life of someone they all thought was forgettable.